I just had that left over. I must admit. B, that you took California by storm. Oh, I don't know about it. When the storm cleared up, though, you bought all the property. In 1947, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby seemed like Hollywood's perfect duo, but behind. Their famous road movies lay a bitter truth. Crosby called him a talentless hack, refused to attend his roasts, and wouldn't let their wives socialize. Now, decades later, the real story emerges of how two comedy legends went from partners to enemies, and the shocking betrayal that finally tore them apart. Bob Hope was born as Leslie Towns Hope on May 29, 1903, in a London suburb called Elam. His father, William, was a stonemason from Somerset, and his mother, Avis, was a light opera singer from Wales. Money was tight, and life in England was not easy. William decided to take a chance on a better future. In 1907, he left for America and settled in Cleveland, Ohio, where his brothers were already working as PL and steamfitters. A year later, he sent for his wife and 6 sons. The family traveled in third class aboard the SS Philadelphia and arrived at Ellis Island on March 30, 1908. When immigration officers recorded their information, they mistakenly listed Bob as 2 years old instead of 4. That error stayed with him on official documents for years. Life in Cleveland was difficult. The Hope family lived in a small home near Don's Corners and struggled to make ends meet. They often took in boarders for extra income. Avis, despite the hardships, never stopped encouraging her children. She taught Bob to sing and helped him develop his natural ability to entertain. He loved to mimic people, tell jokes, and perform little dance routines. Even when money was scarce, his mother made sure he had a chance to grow his talents. Bob's first real taste of performing came when he was 10. He entered a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest at Luna Park in Cleveland and won. He loved the excitement of being on stage, but at that time, entertainment wasn't his main focus. Instead, he became interested in boxing. In 1919, he competed in the Ohio Novice Boxing Championships under the name Patchy East, a tribute to boxer Patchy McFarland. He won 3 fights before losing in the finals. Later in life, he joked that he spent more time on the canvas than Picasso. To help support his family, Bob took whatever jobs he could find. He sold newspapers, worked as a soda jerk, sold shoes, and even tried hustling pool. These jobs put him in contact with all kinds of people. He paid attention to how they talked, how they moved, and what made them laugh. Without realizing it, he was gathering the material that would later shape his comedy. By the 1920s, he started taking entertainment more seriously. He took dance lessons from professionals like King Racist Brown and Johnny Root, which helped him get small jobs in vaudeville. His first performing partner was Mildred Rosequist, but her mother wouldn't allow her to travel, so he teamed up with Lloyd Durbin and later George Byron. In the beginning, he performed in small venues like Cleveland's Bandbox Theater. He kept working, improving, and climbing his way up. By 1931, he had reached New York City's Palace Theater, one of the biggest vaudeville stages in the country. Vaudeville became Bob's training ground. Most comedians of the time stuck to prepared routines, but he developed a more natural style. He liked to interact with the audience rather than just deliver rehearsed jokes. His performances combined dancing with quick one-liners, a mix that set him apart from other entertainers. By the late 1930s, he made the leap from vaudeville to radio. His first radio appearances included hosting the Intimate Review in 1935 and the Atlantic Family from 1935 to 1936. These early shows helped him get noticed, but it was the Pepsodent show starring Bob Hope that made him a national star. When the Pepsodent show started airing on NBC, it became an instant hit. In the early 1940s, it was the #1 show in America. Even as time passed, it stayed in the top 5 for more than 10 years. Every week, millions of listeners tuned in, waiting to hear what Hope would say next. His style was different from other comedians at the time. Most radio stars played fictional characters, but Hope made himself the punchline. He joked about real events and everyday life, keeping his material fresh. He told his writers to read the newspaper and turn headlines into jokes. They wrote hundreds of jokes every week, and Hope picked only the best. This fast-paced approach set the stage for the late-night talk show monologues that would come decades later. His success didn't go unnoticed. He won 3 Peabody Awards, one of the highest honors in broadcasting. The first came in 1944, recognizing his efforts to boost morale during the war. The Peabody Committee praised his dedication, saying the joy he brought to the troops could never be measured. Later, he received more Peabody Awards for his work in both radio and television. At its peak, the Pepsodent Show wasn't just the most popular radio show, it was part of American culture. From 1942 to 1944, it held the top spot, proving that comedy could be more than just entertainment. It could bring people together. It could lift spirits in hard times. Even after radio faded, Hope's influence never disappeared. In 1990, he was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame, a final honor for a man who had spent decades shaping the world of comedy. Bob Hope's start in Hollywood was anything but glamorous. His first film role came in 1934 with Going Spanish, a short film that he later joked was so bad it should be used as punishment. That kind of humor became his trademark, sharp, self-aware, and always delivered with perfect timing. He didn't take himself too seriously, but audiences loved him for it. His big break came in The Big Broadcast of 1938. It wasn't just another musical comedy. It gave the world Thanks for the Memory. Hope sang the song with Shirley Ross, and it became an instant hit. The lyrics were sentimental and witty, and the melody was unforgettable. More than just a song, it became part of his identity. It captured everything people loved about him: charm, humor, and a touch of sincerity. By the late 1930s, Hope was already a major star on radio, but Hollywood was a different challenge. His film roles played on his natural comedic style. He was always the fast-talking, overconfident guy who found himself in trouble. The Cat and the Canary, 1939, was a perfect example. It was a mix of horror and comedy, with Hope playing a nervous hero trapped in a haunted house. The balance of suspense and humor worked, and audiences couldn't get enough of him. Then came Road to Singapore, 1940. This was the start of something legendary. It was the first of the Road 2 films, a series that paired Hope with Bing Crosby and Dorothy Lamour. These movies had everything: music, adventure, and nonstop comedy. Hope and Crosby had incredible chemistry. Crosby was the smooth talker. Hope was the wise-cracking coward, and Lamour was the woman they both chased after. What made these films special was how natural they felt. Much of the humor wasn't in the script. Hope and Crosby improvised constantly, throwing jokes at each other and even breaking the fourth wall. Their quick banter gave the movies an energy that audiences loved. The series ran for over 2 decades, with Road to Morocco, 1942, becoming one of the most popular entries. The formula was simple, but it never got old. Hope and Crosby weren't just acting. They were having fun, and it showed. Even outside the Weichheit Road 2 series, Hope proved he could carry a film on his own. He had a gift for parody, taking classic genres and turning them into hilarious comedies. The Paleface, 1948, was a perfect example. He played a cowardly dentist who accidentally became a Western hero. The idea of Hope as a gunslinger was ridiculous, but that's what made it so funny. He didn't play tough guys. He played the guy who got in over his head and somehow survived. His love for parody continued with My Favorite Brunette, 1947, a Euro comedy that poked fun at detective films. The Ghost Breakers, 1940, mixed horror and comedy, with Hope trying to survive a night in a haunted mansion. He wasn't a traditional action star. He didn't fight his way out of trouble. He talked his way out. That made him different from other leading men at the time. Bob Hope's first USO tour on May 6, 1941, was the start of something historic. That night at Marchfield in California, he performed his NBC radio show live for an audience of servicemen. It was a new experience for him and a big moment for the USO, which had been founded just months earlier. Soldiers filled the venue, eager to see a Hollywood star perform just for them. Hope gave them a mix of comedy and music, but more than that, he gave them a reason to laugh. His jokes were sharp, quick, and made just for them. He talked about their daily lives, their struggles, and the strange world of military bases. It wasn't a polished theater performance, it felt personal. The soldiers responded with roaring laughter, and in that moment, Hope knew he had found his most important audience. That show changed everything. Over the next year and a half, Hope traveled across the U.S. and performing at bases and camps. Then came World War II, and he took his act overseas. From 1941 to 1945, he toured some of the most dangerous places in the world. He performed in Europe and the Pacific, often near active combat zones. His 1944 tour of the South Pacific covered 30,000 miles in 2 months. He visited Hawaii, New Guinea, and Australia, performing more than 150 shows. Some places had barely any infrastructure. Stages were makeshift, and the equipment was unreliable. He didn't care. The soldiers were what mattered. Hope's tours were risky. German forces tracked his movements, knowing how much he meant to American morale. Towns where he had just performed were bombed soon after. He never let the danger stop him. Instead, he turned it into part of his act. If a bomb dropped nearby, he joked about it. If the conditions were rough, he made fun of himself for being there. Soldiers loved him for that. His performances weren't just about laughter. They reminded troops of home. He brought singers, musicians, and dancers to make the shows feel special. Every performance was different. He tailored his jokes to fit the place, the people, and the situation. He wasn't just entertaining soldiers, he was connecting with them. Over time, Hope became more than a comedian. He became a symbol of support. Soldiers saw him as one of them, someone who understood what they were going through. His Christmas tours were especially important. During the Korean War, he performed in freezing conditions, sometimes just miles from battle zones. In Vietnam, where public opinion on the war was divided, he faced criticism back home, but never stopped showing up for the troops. His Vietnam tours were some of his biggest. He brought Hollywood stars like Anne Margaret and Raquel Welch to perform alongside him. The shows were carefully planned to avoid attacks, with stages set up in different locations to confuse enemies. For the soldiers, these performances were unforgettable. Many had never seen a live show before, let alone one with celebrities from home. Hope's dedication never faded. In 1990, at 87 years old, he traveled to Saudi Arabia during Operation Desert Shield. He had been performing for troops for nearly 5 decades, covering 57 USO tours across multiple wars and continents. In 1997, Congress named him an honorary veteran. It was the one title he valued more than any award or trophy. Bob Hope stepped into television in 1947 when he hosted the first commercial broadcast on Los Angeles's KTLA. But his real breakthrough came on April 9, 1950, with NBC's Star-Spangled Review. This variety show brought his sharp monologues, comedy sketches, and musical performances to TV. It was a natural transition from radio, where he had already built a loyal audience. The show aired live from New York and marked the beginning of his long partnership with NBC. Instead of committing to a weekly series, Hope chose to focus on television specials. This decision gave him the flexibility to maintain high-quality productions while continuing his work in films and USO tours. His early success on television set him apart. In 1950, he signed a long-term contract with NBC, ensuring he would stay on the air for decades. Many entertainers from radio struggled with the shift to television, but Hope's timing and delivery worked just as well on screen as they had on the air. By the early 1950s, he was one of the most recognizable faces. In entertainment, his Christmas specials became a lasting tradition. He had started performing for U.S. troops during World War II, but in 1954 he began filming these performances for television. These specials showed him traveling around the world to entertain soldiers, often bringing major stars like Anne Margaret, Raquel Welch, and Neil Armstrong. They weren't just holiday broadcasts. They were moments of connection for troops far from home. One of the most memorable aired in January 1970, his Vietnam Christmas show, which drew 64% of the television audience, the highest ever for an entertainment special at the time. For soldiers in the middle of a controversial war, Hope's visits were more than just entertainment. They were a reminder of home. His Christmas specials continued for decades, with his last overseas USO tour happening during Operation Desert. SHIELD in 1990. These shows defined his legacy as more than a comedian. He was someone who used his talent to lift the spirits of those serving their country. His television specials followed a format that would later influence variety shows and late-night talk shows. His opening monologues covered current events with quick, sharp humor. He filled each special with celebrity guests, music, and comedy skits. His style of humor made him relatable, even when he was sharing the stage with Hollywood's biggest stars. From 1963 to 1967, he also hosted Bob Hope Presents the Chrysler Theater, an anthology series that featured dramatic plays and variety-style episodes. This showed his range as both a performer and producer. Between 1950 and 1996, he hosted more than 300 television specials, leaving behind a legacy that shaped American entertainment. Meanwhile, Bob Hope's love life was filled with contradictions. His first marriage to Grace Louise Troxell remains a mystery. They got married on January 25, 1933, in Erie, Pennsylvania, while performing together in vaudeville. By November 1934, the marriage was over. What makes this unusual is that Hope later denied it ever happened. Publicists even claimed the marriage license was a mistake, though court records proved otherwise. Despite this denial, Hope quietly sent Troxell money for the rest of her life. She died in 1976 at the age of 65, still financially supported by the man who claimed she was never his wife. This story gets even stranger when you look at the timing. In mid-1933, while still legally married to Troxell, Hope began an affair with Dolores Reed, a Ziegfeld performer who had just joined his vaudeville troupe. Hope later claimed he married Reed in February 1934, but that was months before his divorce from Troxell was finalized. This raises a serious question. Was Hope a bigamist, or did he simply make up details about his second marriage? No marriage certificate or wedding photos of Hope and Reed have ever been found. Biographers like Richard Zoglin have questioned whether their marriage was ever legally recognized. If it wasn't, Reed never seemed to care. She once said that if their marriage hadn't been a good one, she wouldn't have stayed. Whatever the truth, Hope and Reed remained together for nearly 70 years, until his death in 2003. Hope presented himself as a devoted husband and a faithful Catholic, but his private life told a different story. He had countless affairs with young actresses and showgirls. Some were short-lived, others lasted for years. His charm and power kept these stories hidden, but one affair nearly exposed him in a way he couldn't control. In 1949, Hope met Barbara Payton, a rising star in Hollywood. She was young, beautiful, and ambitious. Hope was married, but that didn't stop him from pursuing her. For 6 months they carried on a secret affair. But Payton wanted more. She pushed for financial support and a deeper commitment. Hope refused. By August, he ended things. To keep her quiet, he gave her a payout and walked away. For years, their affair remained a secret, but in 1956, Peyton sold her story to Confidential magazine. In the interview, she exposed Hope in a way no one else had. She described him as cold, controlling, and ruthless. Hope's response was silence. He knew engaging with the scandal would only make it worse. His PR team managed the damage, and the story faded. Hope's career remained intact, but Peyton's never recovered.